The night was silent when the alien Mistress appeared. She came from the dark skies, her ship glowing like a silver star. No one in the human village had ever seen anything like it. People hid in their homes, afraid to even breathe. They whispered her name, the Mistress from the stars. She was tall, her skin pale with a strange light shining under it. Her eyes were sharp, glowing like twin moons. Her voice was soft, but it carried power that made even the bravest men tremble. Everyone knew she was not like them. She was older than their history, stronger than their armies, and wiser than their kings. But she did not come to destroy. She came with treasures. Behind her floated 7 strange chests, each locked with glowing seals. They made no sound, but the air around them was heavy, almost alive. Anyone who looked at them for too long felt dizzy, as if the treasures whispered in a language no one understood. The villagers could not look at her for long. They bent their heads to the ground. Yet she ignored them. Her eyes searched for only one man, the human guard. He was not a great warrior. He had no crown, no title. But he had a reputation, loyal, brave, and honest even when others were not. Perhaps that was why she chose him, or perhaps there was another reason, one only she knew. When she stood before him, the guard felt his knees weaken, but he did not run. He raised his head, meeting her strange, glowing eyes. The Mistress spoke. "You will guard my treasures." Her voice was calm, but the order carried a weight greater than any sword. The guard blinked. Guard? Her treasures? Him? Why would such a powerful being trust a simple man? Yet before he could ask, she raised her hand. "These treasures must not be touched. Do not open them. Do not listen to their call. They will try to tempt you, but you must resist. Guard them until I return." The man nodded, though fear crawled inside him. "Yes, Mistress." Her lips curved, almost a smile. But it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. Then, without warning, the Mistress turned and walked back to her ship. The silver vessel rose silently, carrying her into the stars. The ground shook as she left, and then there was silence again. The villagers looked at the guard with pity. Some thought he was blessed. Others thought he was cursed. Now he was alone. Alone with the treasures. The guard carried the chests into the old fortress on the edge of the village. The walls were broken, but still strong enough to hold secrets. He placed the treasures inside the main hall one by one. Every time he touched them, the air grew heavy, and his heart beat faster. When the last chest was placed, he locked the doors and sat down with his sword across his knees. His duty had begun, but the night was not quiet. From the chests came faint whispers like voices hidden under the wind. At first he thought it was only his mind playing tricks. But as the moon rose higher, the voices grew clearer. "Open us. See what lies inside." "Touch me, human." The guard clenched his fists. His mistress had warned him. These treasures were not ordinary. They were alive in some strange way. They wanted to be touched, opened, freed. His chest tightened with fear. Why had she left him here? Why did she trust him? What test was this? He tried to sleep, but sleep did not come. The glow of the treasures filled the hall like fireflies trapped in glass. Shadows danced on the stone walls, moving even when no light touched them. He kept his sword ready, though he did not know if steel could fight what lived inside those chests. Days passed. The villagers brought him food, but no one entered the fortress. They were too afraid. Rumors spread quickly. Some said the treasures held alien weapons that could destroy armies. Others said they were filled with living creatures captured from faraway stars. A few whispered that they were cursed, that anyone who stayed near them too long would lose their mind. The guard heard all of this, but he stayed. His word was his bond. He had promised. But at night, when the whispers grew louder, his heart filled with questions. What if the Mistress never returned? What if she left him here forever? What if the treasures were not meant to be guarded, but tested? One evening, as the sun burned red over the horizon, something happened. The smallest chest trembled. Its glowing lock flickered as if struggling to hold. The guard froze, sweat running down his back. Slowly, the chest stopped shaking, but the lock did not glow as bright as before. He could almost feel it watching him. His sword felt heavy in his hands. He whispered to himself, "Stay strong. Do not touch it." But deep inside, a thought whispered back, "What if it is meant for me?" And so his long watch had begun. A human guard, alone with treasures beyond his world. Each night the whispers grew stronger. Each day his doubts grew deeper. The Mistress had said she would return. but no one knew when, or if she ever would. And the question burned inside him. Was he protecting the treasures, or were the treasures testing him? The fortress stood silent under the pale moon. Inside, the guard sat alone, his eyes fixed on the glowing chests. Days had passed since the alien mistress left, but her warning still echoed in his mind. Do not open them. Do not listen to their call. But tonight, the call was stronger than ever. The smallest chest shook again. Its glowing seal flickered like a dying star. The whispers returned, louder, clearer, almost human. Open me. I hold secrets. I hold power. The guard's heart pounded. He rose from his seat, his sword clutched tightly. He stepped closer, though every step felt heavy. The air near the chest was warm, like standing near fire. His skin prickled. He knelt beside it, staring at the glowing lock. The light pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, and then something happened. The lock blinked once, twice. And then the whispers turned into a voice that spoke in his own language. Why do you fear me, human? I am not your enemy. I am your gift. The guard gasped and stumbled back. He lifted his sword, but there was nothing to strike. The chest did not move, yet the voice continued, soft and inviting. Your mistress left me with you, because you are worthy. Open me and you will know her true plan. The man's mind raced. Could it be true? Was this the real test? But he remembered the mistress's smile. Strange, secretive, dangerous. He tightened his grip on the sword and shook his head. No. My duty is to protect. Not to open, the voice laughed, gentle and cold. Protect. You guard what you do not understand. What if your mistress never returns? What if she has abandoned you? Would you waste your life staring at locked boxes until your bones turn to dust? The words pierced his heart. A shadow of doubt crept into his mind. For the first time, he wondered if she would ever return. The night stretched long. The whispers did not stop. They grew louder, filling the hall, echoing off the stone walls. He covered his ears, but the voice was already inside his head. Finally exhausted, he left the hall and climbed to the fortress roof. The stars stretched across the sky, cold and endless. Somewhere among them, the mistress traveled. Why me? He whispered to the night. Why did she choose me? The stars gave no answer, but behind him, deep inside the fortress, a sound echoed. A sharp crack. The guard ran back into the hall, his boots striking the old stone floor. His eyes widened. The smallest chest now glowed brighter than ever. The seal was splitting, tiny cracks of light spilling out like liquid fire. He raised his sword, pointing it at the chest. His breath came fast. Stay closed, he shouted as if the chest could hear him, but the glow only grew stronger. The whispers turned into a chorus, dozens of voices speaking at once. Touch me, claim me, see what lies beyond. The fortress trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. For a moment, the guard thought the chest would burst open. But then, suddenly, it stopped. The glow faded back to a soft pulse. The whispers grew quiet like fading echoes in a cave. Silence returned. The guard collapsed to his knees, sweat dripping from his forehead. His hands shook. He had resisted, but barely. The next morning, villagers came with food. They noticed the guard's pale face and trembling hands. One old man asked carefully, Are the treasures safe? The guard forced a nod. Safe. But they are restless. The old man shivered and whispered, Perhaps they do not wish to be guarded. Perhaps they wish to choose their own master. The guard said nothing, but the words stayed with him. That night the test grew worse. He dreamed of the mistress. She stood before him, her glowing eyes softer than before. She reached out her hand and whispered, Why do you suffer? Open them, they are yours. In the dream, he stepped forward. He touched the smallest chest. It opened with a blinding light. Inside was no weapon, no monster, only a mirror. In the reflection, he did not see himself as a man, but as something greater, taller, with eyes glowing like hers. He woke with a cry, his heart racing. His hands reached out in the dark, reaching for the chest. But then he stopped, realizing it was only a dream. Or was it a dream? The days became harder. Every night the chest tried to tempt him. Every night the voices grew louder, the visions stronger. Sometimes he saw kingdoms bowing to him. Sometimes he saw himself burning in fire. The mistress had warned him, but she had not told him why. And the not knowing was worse than the danger itself. On the seventh night, the chest whispered something new. Not promises, not power, but a warning. She is not who you think she is. She left you here not to protect, but to suffer. Open me and you will see the truth. The guard froze. His blood ran cold. His heart whispered a question he dared not speak. Was the mistress testing him? Or betraying him? The first test had begun, and deep inside the guard feared he was already failing. The fortress wall stood tall, but inside the guard felt smaller with each passing night. The alien mistress had been gone for many days now, and her treasures refused to stay silent. The smallest chest no longer whispered alone. Now the others joined in. Faint murmurs spread across the hall, overlapping like the sound of many voices speaking at once. He could not understand every word, but he could feel their meaning. They promised him strength, knowledge, and glory. Every night as he tried to sleep on the cold floor, the voices grew louder. They crept into his dreams. One night he saw a vision. He was standing in armor not of this world. His hands glowed with strange light, and armies knelt before him. The voices whispered, "You are chosen. You are more than a guard. You are meant to rule." The guard woke with sweat dripping down his face. He sat up, his sword in his hand, and looked around the empty hall. The chests glowed faintly, pulsing like beating hearts. He whispered to himself, "They are only dreams, only lies." But deep down he wondered, what if they were not lies? The villagers noticed his change. His eyes grew darker and his face looked tired. Some dared to ask him questions. "Do they speak to you?" One man whispered. The guard hesitated. "They call to me." The villagers gasped and stepped back, crossing themselves as if to protect from evil. They left the food quickly and hurried away. Soon fewer and fewer came. The people feared him almost as much as they feared the treasures. Alone, the guard carried the weight of his duty. But loneliness only made the whispers stronger. On the 10th night, something unusual happened. The largest chest, the one with a golden seal, began to glow brighter than all the others. The air turned heavy, pressing against his chest like a storm. The whisper from this chest was different, deep, commanding, like the voice of a king. "Human, do you not see? She has left you to rot. She tests you, yes, but for what? Not for loyalty, for weakness. She knows you will fall. She waits for the moment when you will beg her for mercy, but you do not need her. You need only me." The guard shook his head violently, pressing his hands to his ears. "Stop it, stop!" But the voice thundered louder. "Open me and you will see what she hides. You will see the truth of her power. You will see why she fears you." The words struck him like a blade. Why would the mistress fear him? He was only a man, nothing more. Yet the thought stayed with him, sharp and dangerous. The following day he left the fortress and walked to the village edge. Children stared at him with wide eyes before running away. Only the old man, the village elder, dared to meet him. "You look cursed," the elder said, his voice dry as the wind. The guard's hands shook. "The chests. They call to me. They show me things. Power, armies, strange futures. I fear I am losing my mind." The elder leaned closer and whispered, "Listen to me, guard. Stories say the mistress has done this before. In other worlds, she leaves her treasures behind, guarded by loyal souls. But none of them ever return the same. Some vanish, some go mad, some rise as something not human." The guard's blood ran cold. "Why would she do this?" The elder shook his head. "Only she knows. Perhaps she searches for a servant. Perhaps she searches for an enemy. Or perhaps she simply enjoys the game." The words haunted the guard as he returned to the fortress. That night the whispers grew unbearable. He lay on the cold stone, hands over his ears, but still they filled his head. "You are stronger than her. You are meant for more. She is not your mistress. You are hers." The voices overlapped, tempting him, tearing at his will. His sword lay beside him, useless against sound. Suddenly he rose and shouted into the empty hall, "Enough! I will not listen. I swore to protect them." The fortress fell silent. The voices stopped. For the first time in many nights he felt peace. He sank to the floor, exhausted, thinking perhaps he had finally broken free. But then a new whisper came, not from the chests, not from outside, from within his own mind. A cold, low voice spoke inside him, soft as a breath. "You cannot silence us, human. We are already part of you." The guard froze, terror gripping him. He pressed his hands to his head, shaking violently. No, I am still myself." But deep inside he knew the truth. The treasures were no longer only outside him. Their whispers had entered his very soul. As dawn broke, he stood at the fortress gate, staring at the rising sun. His hands trembled and his eyes burned with a faint glow he had never seen before. The villagers watching from afar whispered among themselves, "He is changing. The treasures are eating him. No, they are making him something else." The guard heard them, but he no longer cared. The mistress had told him to protect the treasures, but now the treasures were protecting him from his own weakness, from his own doubts. He looked back at the fortress, at the glowing chests waiting inside, and for the first time, he wondered if they were not curses at all. Perhaps they were his destiny. The fortress no longer felt like a prison. It felt alive. The walls breathed, the shadows moved, and the chests glowed like restless hearts. The guard had resisted for many days, but resistance was wearing him thin. His dreams were no longer his own. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw visions of himself standing among alien stars, wielding powers no man had ever known. The voices whispered softly now, no longer shouting, no longer demanding. They spoke with care like friends. "You are ready. You have proven stronger than others. Touch only one, only a little, and you will understand." The guard sat in the center of the hall, his sword across his knees. He stared at the smallest chest, the one that had tempted him since the beginning. The lock glowed faintly as if waiting for him. He whispered, almost to himself, "She told me not to touch them." The voice inside his head answered, "She told you not to touch them because she fears you. She knows if you unlock the truth, you will rise above her." The guard shook his head. "No, she chose me because I am loyal." The voice laughed, soft and cold. "Or she chose you because she knew you would break." That night the air grew heavy. A storm rumbled outside, shaking the old fortress. Lightning flashed through the broken roof. Rain hammered down, echoing through the stone halls. The guard could not sleep. He paced the floor, his eyes locked on the glowing chest. Each flash of lightning made it seem closer, brighter, more alive. Finally he stopped. His hands trembled as he stepped forward. 1 step, 2 steps, until he stood before it. The whispers grew louder, pressing against his skull. His breath came fast. "Touch me, human. Only your hand. Only once. No one will know." His hand rose slowly, almost against his will. His fingers hovered above the glowing seal. The air burned around it, and his skin tingled. For a long moment he froze, caught between fear and desire. Then, he touched it. The moment his skin met the treasure, light burst out like fire. It burned his hand, but he could not pull away. The light wrapped around him, sinking into his skin, filling his veins. He cried out as visions exploded in his mind. He saw alien worlds with skies of fire. He saw ships larger than mountains tearing through the stars. He saw armies of creatures kneeling, their heads bowed to him, and then he saw his own death. A battlefield drenched in red. Himself, older, broken, lying beneath a shadow shaped like the Mistress. The visions ended as suddenly as they began. He fell back, gasping, clutching his hand. The seal on the chest glowed brighter now, but it did not break. It had given him a taste and nothing more. The guard stared at his palm. A strange mark now burned into his skin, glowing faintly. It was a symbol, alien and unreadable, but alive. It pulsed with his heartbeat. He whispered, trembling, "What have I done?" The following day he felt different. His body was stronger. His steps were lighter. His senses sharper. He could hear the flutter of wings far outside the fortress, smell the damp earth of the storm even hours after it ended. The villagers noticed too. When he came to the gate, they stepped back in fear. His eyes glowed faintly like hers. One brave boy asked, "Are you still human?" The guard could not answer. That night the voices inside his head no longer begged. They praised. "You are chosen. You are one of us now. More power waits if you dare again." He shook his head violently. No, never again. But his hand throbbed with the mark, glowing brighter each time the chests whispered. As he lay awake, he thought of the Mistress. What would she say if she saw this mark? Would she punish him? Or had this been her plan all along? On the 7th night after the touch, the fortress trembled again. But this time it was not from the storm. A shadow moved across the hall. The guard leapt to his feet, sword in hand. His eyes searched the darkness. The torches flickered and went out, one by one, until only the glow of the chests remained. In the corner of the hall, a shape moved. A tall figure cloaked in black, its eyes burning faintly. The guard's heart pounded. Was it her? Had the Mistress returned? He called out, his voice shaking, "Who's there?" The shadow did not answer. It only stared. And then as lightning cracked across the sky, the figure vanished. The guard stood frozen, his marked hand burning hotter than ever. He whispered to himself, was that her, or was it something else these treasures have awakened? He knew one thing now. The forbidden touch had changed him forever, but whether it was a gift or a curse, only time would tell. The fortress was no longer quiet. Since the night of the forbidden touch, the air itself had changed. The guard carried the mark on his palm, glowing faintly even when he hid it under cloth. His senses were sharper, his body stronger, but his mind heavier with fear. The treasures no longer whispered. They hummed low and steady as if waiting, watching. And then on the 12th night the sky opened again. From the horizon a silver light burned brighter than the stars. It grew larger, louder, until the ground shook beneath the fortress. Villagers ran into the fields, pointing to the heavens. Children cried, elders prayed. The mistress had returned. Her ship descended slowly, silent yet mighty. It landed on the old stone plain outside the fortress, casting shadows that swallowed the village. The door opened and she stepped out. The alien mistress looked the same and yet different. Her eyes glowed brighter, her presence heavier. Even the air seemed to bend around her. She walked with calm steps, her gaze fixed on the fortress. The villagers bowed to the ground. None dared to speak but the guard. He stood at the gate, sword in hand, heart pounding. When her eyes fell on him, she paused. For a long moment, neither moved. The mistress studied him as if she could see through his skin into his very soul. "You have changed," she said softly. Her voice was not angry, not kind, only certain. The guard swallowed hard. His marked hand burned as if exposed. He hid it behind his back, but her glowing eyes followed the movement. "Show me," she commanded. He froze. "Mistress, do not lie," she interrupted. Her words cut sharper than any blade. Slowly, with shaking hands, he pulled away the cloth. The mark on his palm pulsed, glowing faintly in the night. The villagers gasped in fear. Some turned away, whispering curses. The mistress stepped closer. Her eyes narrowed as she studied the mark. Then, to the guard's surprise, her lips curved into a faint smile. "So," she whispered, "you touched it." The guard's chest tightened. I tried to resist. For many nights I fought their voices, but they would not stop. "I swear, mistress, Her raised hand silenced him. "Do you think I did not know this would happen?" she asked, her voice calm, almost amused. He blinked. "You knew?" "Of course," she said. "The treasures do not test themselves. They test you. That is their purpose. And you, human, you have passed the first step." The guard's mind spun. Passed? This had been her plan? The pain, the visions, the endless whispers, all part of her design? His voice shook. "Why me? Why leave me alone with them?" The mistress studied him with her glowing eyes. "Because you are loyal. Because you are strong. But loyalty without temptation is worthless. Strength without trial is hollow. I needed to see if you would break." Her words pierced him. All the suffering, the fear, the endless nights of torment, it was not accident. It was her will. Anger burned in his chest. "I nearly lost my mind. You left me with no answers, no guidance." The mistress tilted her head. "And yet you survived." The villagers, still kneeling nearby, looked up in awe. To them, the mistress was a goddess beyond question. But to the guard, she was something else now. Something dangerous. She stepped closer, her voice lower, almost a whisper meant only for him. "The mark you bear is not a curse. It is a key. It will open what others cannot. With it, you are no longer just my guard. You are my vessel." His blood turned cold. "Vessel? You hold a piece of my power now," she said. "A gift or a burden. That depends on how you use it." The guard shook his head. "I never asked for this." Her eyes hardened. "Do you think destiny asks permission?" The chests behind him glowed suddenly, as if answering her words. Their light filled the fortress hall stronger than ever. The mark on his hand burned, syncing with their pulse. The mistress watched, satisfied. "You see? They answer to you now. They recognize your touch. They will no longer test you. They will serve you." But the guard did not feel served. He felt trapped. The voices inside him stirred again, whispering half-truths, promising more. He clenched his fist, but the glow only brightened. "Tell me, mistress," he asked slowly, "what happens if I refuse?" The mistress's smile faded. Her eyes, bright and cold, locked on his. "Then the treasures will consume you, body and soul. And I will watch as they choose another." Silence fell. The villagers trembled, afraid even to breathe. The guard's heart thundered in his chest. He looked at the glowing chests, at the villagers who feared him, at the mistress who claimed to control fate itself. For the first time, he wondered if this was not a blessing but a trap. The mistress leaned closer, her voice soft as the night breeze. "Choose wisely, human. You are no longer just my guard. You are my test, and my weapon." Her words lingered like poison, and in that moment the guard understood. Her return was not an ending. It was the beginning of something far darker. The fortress hall burned with light. The treasures pulsed like beating hearts, glowing brighter each time the guard's marked hand clenched. The mistress stood tall before him, her glowing eyes unblinking, her expression unreadable. The villagers knelt outside, too afraid to look. They heard nothing of the whispers inside, nothing of the trial that was unfolding. To them, the mistress was a goddess. To the guard, she was judge, jury, and perhaps executioner. For a long moment, silence ruled. Only the hum of the treasures filled the air. Finally, the mistress spoke. Her voice was calm, but it struck him like thunder. "You touched what was forbidden. You broke the command I gave you. Tell me, guard, why should you live?" The words pierced him. He dropped to one knee, sword at his side. His heart pounded. "I resisted for many nights," he said, his voice low. "I fought them until I could not fight anymore. They whispered, they tempted, they promised. I tried to be loyal. But I am only human." Her eyes narrowed. "Only human. That is the excuse of the weak." He raised his head, meeting her gaze. "No, it is the truth. I touched them not for greed, not for power, but because I feared I would lose my mind. I thought if I knew what they were, I could protect them better." For the first time, her expression shifted. Not anger, not kindness, curiosity. "You claim you touched them out of duty?" she asked. "Yes," he said firmly. "I swore to protect them. And I still will. Even if they burn me alive, I will not betray your trust." The mistress circled him slowly like a predator studying prey. Her cloak shimmered in the treasure's glow. "You speak of loyalty," she said, "but I sense something more inside you. Doubt. Anger. You feel betrayed that I left you here without answers." The guard's fists tightened. "Yes, you left me to suffer. You left me alone with whispers that nearly drove me mad. If this was your test, it was cruel." Her glowing eyes locked onto his. "And yet, you survived." Her words cut deeper than blades. It was true. Despite his fear, despite his anger, he still stood. But was survival enough? The mistress raised her hand. The treasures pulsed brighter, and the mark on his palm burned like fire. He fell to the floor, crying out in pain. "Judgment," she whispered. The pain spread through his body, searing his veins, filling his chest with fire. He clutched the ground, sweat pouring down his face. Visions burst into his mind, himself kneeling, himself burning, himself crowned in light. Through the agony, he heard her voice. "Will you submit, or will you rise? Will you remain a loyal guard, or will you grasp what is offered?" He gasped, choking on his breath. "I will protect, as I swore." Her eyes glowed brighter. "Even if it cost your soul?" "Yes." He shouted, the word tearing from his throat. The pain stopped. Silence fell. He collapsed, trembling, his chest heaving. The mark on his palm still burned, but he was alive. The mistress knelt beside him, her cold presence close enough to freeze his skin. She studied him with a gaze that could strip flesh from bone. "You are not like the others," she said at last. "Others begged for mercy. Others opened chest after chest until the treasures devoured them. But you touched once and stopped. You bent but did not break." The guard lifted his head, confused. "Others?" "Yes," she said. "On other worlds. I have left my treasures before, guarded by those who swore loyalty. None passed the test. Until now." Her words chilled him. He was not the first. He was only the latest in a line of doomed souls. But if he was the first to survive, what did that mean for him? The mistress rose to her full height. Her cloak flowed around her like a storm. "Your judgment is given," she declared. "You are not condemned. You are chosen." The villagers gasped from outside, though they could not hear the meaning. To them, her voice was holy. The guard stared at her, his heart torn between relief and dread. Chosen. The word felt like both blessing and curse. He asked carefully, "Chosen? For what?" The mistress's smile returned, faint and sharp. "You are my weapon now, my shield, my vessel. When I go to war among the stars, you will stand at my side. You will wield what no human has ever touched." The guard's blood ran cold. War, stars, vessel. These were not words of honor. They were chains. And yet, as he stood on shaking legs, he felt the mark on his hand pulse with power. Deep inside, part of him whispered that this was not chains at all. It was destiny. The mistress leaned close, her voice low, almost gentle. But remember this, human. Power is a double edge. If you are loyal, it will raise you higher than kings. If you are greedy, it will destroy you faster than fire. The choice is yours. Her eyes locked onto his. For the first time, he felt not just her strength, but her doubt. She was testing him still. Always testing. He bowed his head slowly. I will not betray you. Good, she whispered. Then judgment is complete. But in the back of his mind, the whispers of the treasures stirred again, and he wondered if his judgment had truly been passed, or if the real trial was still waiting. The fortress stood in silence, heavy with the weight of judgment. The treasures pulsed softly in the hall, no longer wild, no longer whispering like before. They were calm now, almost waiting. The guard stood at the center, his marked hand glowing faintly in the shadows. His body still ached from the mistress's trial, but his heart carried a heavier burden. He was alive, yes. He was chosen, but chosen for what? The mistress moved through the hall like a shadow of light. Every step she took filled the air with power. The villagers outside watched in awe, whispering prayers they did not understand. At last, she turned to face him fully. It is time, she said. The guard straightened, his sword still at his side. Time for what? Her eyes glowed brighter like twin suns. Time for truth. She raised her hand, and the largest chest, the one with the golden seal, shook violently. Its lock cracked with a sound like thunder. Light poured from its seams, blinding and fierce. The villagers cried out and fell to their knees. The guard shielded his eyes, but the mark on his palm burned, pulling him toward the chest. No, he whispered, stepping back. You told me never to open them. The mistress's smile was sharp, almost cruel. That was before. Now, you must. His chest tightened. Why me? Her voice was cold and certain. Because only you can. The treasures answer to your touch. I made sure of that. You are not simply my guard, you are my key. The word struck him harder than any blade. He was not protecting the treasures. He was unlocking them. That had been the plan all along. The chest burst open with a roar of light. The guard fell to his knees as visions flooded his mind once more. He saw stars burning. He saw alien fleets clashing in endless wars. He saw worlds falling, their skies turned to ash. And through it all, he saw her, the mistress, always standing above, always watching, always conquering. Then the vision shifted. He saw himself at her side, his mark glowing like fire, leading armies not of men but of creatures from other worlds. They obeyed him, bowed to him, feared him. The voice of the treasures echoed inside his skull. You are no longer human. You are the bridge. Half flesh, half power. Hers or yours? The light faded. The chest stood open, empty inside. Empty but not harmless. Its power had poured into him, into his mark, into his very bones. The mistress watched with a calm smile. It is done, she said. You are ready. He staggered to his feet, his body trembling. His eyes burned with faint light now, not unlike hers. His voice shook. What? Have you made me? Her gaze was sharp as a blade. What you were always meant to be. Not just a guard. Not just a man. My eternal protector, my weapon, my creation. The words tore at him. Eternal. Protector. Weapon. Creation. He looked at his marked hand, glowing like fire. He remembered his village, his people, their fearful eyes. Was he still one of them? Or had she stolen that away? The guard's anger boiled. You used me. You never trusted me. You only wanted a tool. The mistress tilted her head, her expression unreadable. Do you think you are the first to say that? Others said the same. And they failed, but you are different. You resisted greed. You endured pain. You proved loyalty even when abandoned. That is why you live and they do not. He felt the weight of her words. True or false, he could not tell. But deep inside, the treasures whispered again. You are not hers. You are yours, choose. For a long moment, silence ruled the hall. The guard stood trembling, torn between loyalty and rebellion, between destiny and freedom. At last, he raised his sword, not against her, but against the empty air. I will protect, he said slowly. Not because you command it, Not because I am your weapon, but because it is who I am. That is my choice. The mistress's eyes narrowed. Then slowly she smiled. Good, she whispered. Better than I hoped. You will protect because it is your will. That makes you stronger than chains. Her voice lowered, cold and sharp. But remember, if you ever betray that will, the treasures will not forgive you. And neither will I. The villagers dared to look up at last. They saw their guard standing, his hand glowing with alien fire. His figure taller, sharper, no longer entirely human. They whispered among themselves, "Is he ours? Or is he hers?" The answer was unclear. The mistress turned and walked back to her ship, her cloak flowing like shadows. She did not look back, but her words lingered in the air. You are mine. And yet not mine. One day you will understand. The ship rose into the night sky, vanishing among the stars. The guard stood alone in the fortress, the treasures glowing softly around him. His sword felt lighter now, his blood heavier with power. He looked at the villagers, their fearful eyes, their whispered prayers, and he whispered to himself, Am I protector? Or curse? The treasures pulsed once, as if laughing, and the guard knew his story was not ending. It was only beginning.